When the Lake Louise Road crosses Austin Creek, that's exactly in the heart of White Deer. And there is Whiskey Creek is also on the property, and a little spring creek called No Name is there. And then across the road is Beaver Creek. So this place was surrounded with lots of water. When we bought it, on the side of the cabin in white letters in wood was Camp White Deer. The Brents, who we purchased it from, used this as their summer retreat area. The Brents, I believe, purchased the property sometime around 1940. It was a one-room cabin with a monarch wood range and a bunk bed and tables and chairs, and then there was the outdoor kitchen. But the Brents had friends in Bellingham, and the women went down and picked out all of the rocks out of Austin Creek, and they picked pretty rocks because the front of the fireplace was beautifully decorated. Just very well done. Apparently they went for a hike and they discovered a spring, a good quarter mile or more off of the property up on Lookout Mountain. They came back, filed for the water rights, and got the water rights. Later, when Glenn Corning, who owned all of the property around us, when he decided to build his house in 1953 or 54 on Lake Louise itself, he approached the Brents and got water rights so he could use some of their water. In return, he put in a water line directly from the spring, passing through the Brent property and continued on. The spring water was very popular and people would stop in and get the spring water. This was Dad's man cave. He loved to have this little bit of property with the cabin and the wild creeks going by. The grouse were there, there was porcupine there, and he loved to go for a hike, particularly in wintertime. We'd get out there, fire up the Monarch, go for a walk in the snow, and come back and have a cup of tea. That was Dad's big thing. Put your feet up and have a cup of tea at White Deer. After we bought the property, Sudden Valley came along and purchased everything around us, all of the former property that was owned by Glenn Corning and his logging organization. They proceeded to build roads all the way around White Deer and above White Deer, and they put in a housing development. They needed to have a sewer system set up, and rather than putting in a pumping station, they approached Dad and said, "Hey, we'd like to come down Whiskey Creek and we'll just follow the creek along and put in our lines." And Dad said, "Well, why don't you build me a dam on Whiskey Creek, because I want to put some fish in here so my grandkids can fish." And they said, "Okay, we'll do it." And that's how the dam came about. The big flood of '83, it was like a tremendous rainstorm that lasted at least a day, and it loosened everything up above Austin Creek, above our property, and big logs fell in, came down, created a log jam. The pressure kept building and it just blew through a culvert and came down and slammed into the bank just above the summer kitchen. And then it rebounded off of that and hit the culvert on Lake Louise Road and wiped that out. Well, we had a number of little bridges that we had built over Austin Creek and No Name Creek, and they dated way back to the Brents, probably in the 40s. All of that was lost. It just came down, smashed and gone, and ripped the soil loose too. So Dad was out there very quickly. Dad was always involved with conservation, and two things. One is he was very concerned about protecting the property if this were to ever happen again. So there was lots of logs laying around, so he had the engineers actually cable them into the side bank so that that bank was now protected. And then secondly, he worked with the roads people in regards to the culvert so that the culvert under Lake Louise Road would be much more friendly to fish. Dad originally purchased Camp White Deer in 1964 for $6,400 from the Brents. It was 40 acres, and so across the road had been logged recently by Corning. And along about 1968, Sudden Valley comes along and says, "Hey, we would like to buy that acreage across the street if it's for sale. We had no idea why they were, what the plan was for it, and we just assumed with the creek and everything, I guess they're going to develop housing. What we didn't know was their geologist had already checked it out, and it was going to be a future gravel pit for them. And when it happened, we were very upset, and that turned out to be a real shock for us, because that went on for years, and noise and dust, and the charm began to fade. It turned out to be a big mistake. When we were thinking about the future for white deer and the idea of, obviously we could sell it to Sudden Valley and they would just turn it into housing. What we wanted to do was preserve this precious little gem. Conservation easement was Dad's idea. At the time, he was the manager of the property. So this was in the 1980s. He was looking around because of the development going on and things. And I think what happened then is he became more and more aware of the land trust. He passed the ownership of the property to the three sons. And in 2004, we made the decision, it's time to give white deer, give it to the land trust, because we think they will be the best managers of it. But we put everything in writing as to how to manage this property, and everybody agreed. And it was a gift to the land trust. Now everybody can enjoy it.